So, update on The Ordinary Bruja, and that is that I am in, what is it, chapter 25 right now of the second to last pass, and I'm so excited. Shout out that reviewer because it gave me a pause to validate that and to also make a plan to make the book better because it was very quick. And that's the thing with reviews that are specific, that if they pinpoint something, then it's easier for the author, for me in particular, in this moment, to go and look in that place just to see what the reader may have thought. And then through that, I'm able to ascertain whether that is something that I need to focus on. And if that is something that I need to put time in so that way I can fix. And in this case, the answer was an absolute yes. And I was like, let me put it in to my passes because after every time the book comes out, per se, it's all digital, right? The book is still in manuscript format in Google Drive. So but whenever it goes out and I email it to somebody else, an editor or whatnot, and then it comes back, I manually accept or reject the edits. I don't do the whole accept all thing just because I have control issues. Um, then I also read the entire manuscript just to make sure, because it has happened to me before that I accept edits and then my finger get a little typey, and next thing you added an error that now was not supposed to be there because you saw something I wanted to add or I wanted to take away a little bit more now that the editor had made that particular change, and then it causes havoc. So that's how I do like QA QC per se after each edit, is by just doing a whole listen through or read through. More often than not, it's a listen through because for me, a listen through works a little bit better just because I am listening to clunky sentences, things that may be too long or things that may be too short. That's the best way for me to catch those because I have gotten so used to my manuscripts at this point. Whenever I get it back from the proofreader, because that's like last thing, is that I tend to fix it in my head, you not really catch it if I just read it with my eyes. So that's why, like me, it's better if I listen to it. And some of the listens that I do is without looking at it, but kind of focusing on what I'm listening to. And then another listen that I do is by following along on the Google Drive on the manuscript that is there. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm listening while following it on the Google Drive so that way I can catch certain things. And to make it a little bit more expedient, because I'm like less than a month away, what I'm doing is I am fixing it right there when I see it. And then the last thing will be, now that I made all these fixes, is to just read it through as a whole, just to make sure that I didn't take away something I shouldn't have, or I added things that I shouldn't have added. But at this point, the story is that the ARC readers have been reading. All I'm doing is just tweaking sentences here and there so that way the reading, it's a little bit easier. Shifting sentences so that way it doesn't seem repetitive, and even taking some away as well. Certain beats are not repetitive, and that's the last thing that I will do. But what I'm looking forward to the most is narrating. And let me tell you, I am in the parts that are Salvador heavy on the book, and I can't wait to make that voice because in my head, when I was creating this character, this just so pompous, so full of himself that I cannot wait to make this voice. And I remember when I was a little girl in the Dominican Republic, and families talk, and there wasn't that got her papers, came to the US and all of that. And then she will come back to visit and she will act very bougie now because she's coming from Nueva Yol. So um, my sister and I will always use eavesdrop. That's where I got that thing for Isla Delgado, that she eavesdrops on conversation in Mrs. Francie's Evil Ring. Because of that, that's how my sister and I used to get the tea. You know, we had something, we had to know what the adults were talking about because that was news to us that let us know about our environment and our world. And we were, chismosas. So, but it is, or we still are. But I remember like to my talk in La Sala, late at night. We were supposed to be in our rooms sleeping, and we're there like ear hustling hard. They're talking about this particular Dia and how she had come back for vacation. Usually is winter. They leave Nueva Yol or Massachusetts, to come to the DR and have vacation time there, sometimes for like a month. And she apparently was like, ¿Qué son estas bolas aquí? She's talking about the coconuts on the palm trees, right? On the coconut tree. And she's like, what are these balls hanging here? And my family would never let that die out. Like, you know how it is in Latina families when somebody makes an oopsie, it carries on for that person's lives. So whenever, that person comes up, it's like, this is the story that we're going to tell about that person. It is just how it is. I have that story too. I'm not going to tell you all, but there's a story that whenever my name comes up, it's just story's going to come up with it. We all have it. And yeah, so when it comes to Salvador, I am like pinpointing that moment in my head because that's how I'm gonna sound. I'm gonna sound like that pompous, kind of like, pretentious person that feels that they're superior because they got papers and now they're living in the United States and stuff like that, kind of like that moment that my auntie had. And I cannot wait to do that voice. Obviously, I mean, Salvador is like a very serious villain. So I have to make sure, I'm not laughing and things of that nature. But, in my head, I want y'all to know when you listen to the audiobook for The Ordinary Bruja, just know where that voice came from.